it's very easy to be a Monday morning quarterback, and obviously most of the Democrats' solutions that I have been witnessing over the years has been simply about raising taxes, and obviously this majority that you have is about lowering taxes, and we have focused on the certainty piece of the ledger, and that is on expenditures, not on the revenue side. And we have been able to downsize state government. We are reinventing state government. We're putting it in a 21st century model, and you're going to see a budget this year that's reflective of that. But we're not taking our eyes off the real goal, and that is that in this environment that we're in, where businesses are reinventing themselves, a new business model has to be put in place on the revenue side, and we want to make sure that it's done in a very constructive way, and the right people are at the table to help us as we move through this in a very judicious type of method. We're not throwing something up against the wall to see what sticks, and we're not acting like Washington. We're doing the real task at hand, and that is balancing this budget in a fiscally responsible way.
In the legislation, it would be the current governor, Perdue, whose term expires, and who certainly had 8 years of experience with revenue issues, and then former Governor Miller, who's the most recent former governor that's not involved in any political race. And of course, he was lieutenant governor for a number of years and governor, is very familiar with the state budget. They'll bring a
We're
CEO.
asking Governor Miller.
We're asking Governor Miller. These are all requests at this point in time, and the speaker can speak to that better. But
Have you approached these two governors?
Governor Perdue has been approached.
And I have a call into Governor Miller. As you know, his health has not been the best lately, so
Right.
we're waiting to hear back from him.
And the thought being there, you've got two CEOs who have great knowledge of not only the state budget, but the tax system. Governor Miller, I think, went through this exercise to a certain degree during his tenure, so they could bring a lot of experience to the table.
What we envision this model to be is not exactly like, but similar to the Brock Commission that the federal government utilized. That being that when we get the specific proposals back from the council, that we would have to take action on those in some fashion, as opposed to simply having a piece of paper delivered to us that we could read or act upon or not act upon. We hope at the end of the day that we'll have trigger mechanisms within the legislation that's adopted that will require some response on the part of the General Assembly. So that will be what separates this from other groups.
Well, I think one of the things that we're saying is we don't want to predetermine our individual biases on this council. Let them make those recommendations to us. And I think if we set our ideas out in place and say, how about go repeat those back to us, we have actually not done what we're intending to do. So I'd rather let that council look at everything. We have, as you know, a personal income tax code, a corporate income tax code, and a sales tax code that I think they should be free to examine every area of that and tell us which one is fair, which one is working, which is productive to growing jobs and sustaining jobs. And when we get that report, I have confidence that these individuals and the legislative body in the future will be able to address those. No, not really. It's a special standing committee. We have we have a great model. We did the water bill as a joint Senate and House. The HOPE legislation was a joint of the Senate and the House. And I think most recently, probably the finest example that Lieutenant Governor referred to was when we went into that little recess to work on the budget. We had joint Senate and House Appropriations Committee hearings, which produced great results without overlap of activity. I think the Speaker indicated it very clearly that what we want to do, though, is to a certain degree make us as legislators respond to that report, up or down. It doesn't supplant our ability to address it legislatively. It'll still have to be a bill drafted. Obviously, a tax bill originates in the House and then to our companions in the Senate. But if we're simply going to have a task force that gives us a piece of paper, as the Speaker said, and we throw it in a trash can, there's no need going through this. We need to respond up or down to the majority of their recommendations, and I think that puts us in good stead. Well, we've had the chairman of Ways and Means is a member of this committee, as you'll see. The chairman of Senate Finance, who is here, would be a member of that committee representing them. But we've had several special committees. In the House, we had a special committee on civil justice reform, special standing committee on CON reform, and currently we have a special committee on small business development. So there's lots of precedents for this.
But this is a tax. I mean, you're talking about tax matters, which
revenue, but there's also a tremendous time policy involved in this too, not just tax code, but a lot of policy. And we think the makeup of this special committee, if you'll look at the people that will be on there and who these gentlemen will be able to appoint, will be able to go right to the heart of the matter, bring it to both chambers for their up or down vote.
I think it really speaks just to the contrary, and that is how serious we really are about the issue, just like when it came to the statewide water plan that we were putting together. That was an up or down vote. It didn't get choked down in a committee process, all right, and you didn't have the special interest necessarily weighing in, but you were serious enough to where you had to take action. And I think that this is the direction that we're heading in, and I think it will be very meaningful, and it will avoid just simply having something thrown in the trash can like many of the study committees we've seen over the years.
The process here is really kind of a general basic idea of taking a blank sheet of paper, bringing together some of the brightest minds in the state who all have their own personal biases, but all share one thing in common. And that one thing in common they share is that we want to grow Georgia's economy, create jobs, and make sure that our tax system is the proper tax system for a 21st century economy. So that's what we're trying to do. Present a blank piece of paper, bring those experts in and say, give us the best system possible. And when they come out with that recommendation, the General Assembly needs to act, and we want to act, but we want to bring the best and brightest to this process and make sure they're telling us what they think is the best system we can have. And once they do, we need to take that recommendation very seriously, and I know that we will.